I just got tired of seeing all the misinformation out there and the bad translations, and I was frustrated.
Being a restaurant owner and everything, shochu it's a hard sell. I mean, we really have to push, and often it's via cocktail first and that type of thing.
Right.
It does sound risky, just because I think there's a lot of people who may not still be familiar with shochu. So I guess, what was it? Did you just, the taste, you found a love for shochu? Is that what kept you on that path?
That's a great question. I came through Nihonshu, through sake, into shochu. I was definitely exploring sake first. I love it. Sake doesn't always love me so much, it seems, but I definitely enjoy sake. And I went so far as to, I studied it quite a bit. I have a level 3 WSET accreditation in sake. So I definitely am a fan. And but it was just kind of by happenstance, not planning to be in Japan very long. I just kind of stumbled into shochu. It was introduced to me, rather. It was, basically pushed in front of me at a bar. And I was just fascinated by a couple of things. One was the range of flavors and aromas that from the world of all of these different drinks that are called shochu. And number two was, nobody could tell me a blessed thing about this drink. It was everywhere, and yet it was completely taken for granted. Yeah. People they couldn't even really tell me for sure whether it was distilled or not. Yeah. It was a really, really funny thing for me. And I kind of felt like, and this is back in early 2003, I kind of felt like I had just gotten a big scoop as a journalist or something. I was like, wow, did I just stumble into something really, really obscure? But it's not, because it's everywhere. Right. But it is, because nobody can tell me anything about it. So it was a really, really exciting time for me. Very early in my Japan tenure. Yeah. And I think that was a big part of it. And then going to the distilleries and seeing it made and seeing the people who make it. And then I was brought back to my time on a brewery floor. I was like, I get this, and it's the same thing in the Nihonshu world, of course. Yeah. But of course, folks in the shochu world internationally are less heralded. They're less known. And I just wanted to know more about what made them tick and makes them tick. And I wanted to, I ended up, I guess what I'm trying to say is I saw a lot of parallels between shochu and awamori. And then also, the nascent craft beer scene in the 80s and 90s in the States. I just saw a lot of connections, and I think that was something that very strongly pulled me to it.
Okay. So when you were starting out, you were thinking more along the lines of consulting and workshops and educating. Was any of that, were you on the fence about wanting to work at a shochu place or become a distiller and promote from within?
That's a good question. I have not done any extensive time on a distillery floor in Japan. I go down and help occasionally with folks who need an extra set of hands, for a weekend or so, especially some of the smaller makers. But I haven't done anything extensive that I could really write home about. And so while I have been invited to I've even been invited to quote unquote make my own brand. But I was a little bit reticent about that because I didn't feel that I would actually have basically have full control over recipe and how everything was put together. I thought it was more of in a couple of situations, it was kind of like they were just paying a little bit of lip service to some form of internationalism or globalism that I wasn't really sure what they were trying to do. So I said thanks, but no thanks. And I just felt like I was way more useful to the industry as a public speaker, as an advocate. So I don't think it's possible to say that there was ever a plan for how I was going to get into the industry from the start. There was more of I'm being as honest as I can be. I really just wanted to share this with everyone.
Right.
And that's where my book came from in 2014. And that's where the consulting business originally came out of. It just was, okay, we have these connections that we've cultured over more than a decade, and we know the lay of the land, and we can probably help businesses cross the Pacific Ocean. So yeah, why not formalize that? And that's where that business came from. It kind of was just like, well, we've worked so hard at this for so long. Why don't we just put it in writing? And we did. Yeah. And that's how that started.
Yeah. And there was definitely a void there, because years back, 2000s, when, early time when I was there, got into shochu as well. And just like you said, you can't get a straight definition from, it's like, but so much of it is personal preference. Like if you're a, emo Joju fan, or you're, chestnuts. I mean, it's all across the board. And then the drinking style is all over the place. And then so learning that and learning Japanese and trying to figure out what all of this means, because at that time there was next to no English out there.
Yep. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. So you were in that boat, but you made the effort to help kind of at least open the door for some discussion.
Yeah, that was a big influence on me. I just got tired of seeing all the misinformation out there and the bad translations, and I was frustrated, because I was really excited about these drinks. Every time I traveled back to the States with a case of them and shared them with my friends and family, people were like, this is wild. Why isn't this, why don't we know more about this? I'm like, hopefully this is the start of something. Tell your friends. And I don't know, I took it very personally for a long time when people weren't getting the right information. And because they weren't getting the right information, they were often just writing the entire category off. Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen that in your own work. I mean, the bad overlap that has been created in the United States between soju and shochu, and how confusing that is for consumers. Right. And it's often perpetuated by the folks that are serving it, just because they haven't had a chance to really sit down and try them, and their manager hasn't told them the difference in any clear detail. So it's still very early stages, but I guess I'm in this game partly because I want to correct that.